Today, I want to talk about should it be easy? If it's meant to be in your relationship, should it be easy? I know I was talking to a few ladies last week and we were just talking about their situations. And at one point, they said, is it supposed to be this hard? Like, should it really be this hard if it's meant to be? And actually, I was having a conversation about this with my husband this weekend, and he was like, Mireille, you need to be real with people. You need to go on live and talk about this and share your own personal experience, your own beliefs. And especially because a lot of times, right, on here on social media, you see so many people posting pictures, right, of their what looks like their perfect relationship. And we get the impression that love is just supposed to be easy all the time. And we should have these professional photos of our family all the time. And that it's all going to be rainbows and butterflies. And I just want to share a bit of a different perspective on that, just to help you. If you're finding yourself in a situation in a relationship where things are a little bit hard right now and you're kind of thinking why is it so easy for everyone else? Maybe I'm with the wrong person. If I was with the right person, it'd be all easy and it wouldn't be so hard. So I want to share a little bit about that so that you can release some pressure from yourself. And also hopefully from seeing a bit of what I experience, you can see kind of where to go next. So I'm going to share with you 3 different things that can make your relationship seem more difficult than it could be. And I'm really curious to know your thoughts on this. If you're watching, say hi. I will try to look at the comments. I'm not the best at that, but I will always go back and respond to them after. So let's talk a little bit about this. And the reason I'm going to share this, obviously, is because I come from the perspective that in my case, we went through difficult times. And to this day, I have to say, even though I consider myself in my happily ever after, there are still moments where it's particularly challenging for my husband and I. And the beauty of it is getting through it. I remember back when we were really going through our low point, I stumbled upon a video. I think it was an Abraham Hicks video. It was Esther talking, and she was saying, how one of the big sources, and it's funny to consider or to think of it this way, one of the big sources of satisfaction as a couple is getting over big obstacles, getting through it together and knowing that you can, overcome anything that comes your way. So when we think of difficult times, it's important to not always stay in that negative state of mind, that negative frame of mind when you think of those challenges, because good can come out of it. It's all in the way you perceive it, I like to say, and all in the way that you navigate those difficulties and what you perceive as hard, right, in your relationship. So I'm going to talk about 3 things that can make things feel really hard in your relationship to give you kind of some direction in terms of where to look at. How can you kind of make your love life a bit more easy on yourself so that you can really identify what's going on and to turn things around and to make sure you're with the perfect person. And if you're with the perfect person, to make sure that it's a really fulfilling relationship, because you can find someone with whom it might be really easy. Maybe you find someone who just takes you for who you are, and that's what you want, right? You want to be with someone who accepts you for who you are, and the other person wants to be accepted for who he is. But you also want to be in a relationship where you guys are both feeling fulfilled and happy and not just settling, right? Or just, dealing with the circumstances, or even not just telling yourselves, okay, it's supposed to be hard, so let's let things be hard, right? That's another angle to look at this. Another thing to think about too. So number 1, the first thing that can make it more difficult in your relationship, and on the flip side, right, it's going to be the flip side of everything I say. What can make it difficult and what can make it easy is number 1, having a very clear vision of what you desire in your love life. So I always share the story about when I was growing up, I was obsessed with the BBC series Pride and Prejudice, that version specifically, and of that romance story. And so because of that, if you've seen that, the movie or the series, right, you'll know that the relationship between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, there was a lot of tension, right? He was very moody, and it took time, and there were moments where she just thought he was like a butthole, but it turned around, right? That they ended up together. They were meant to be together, but there were all these obstacles, these challenges. So I had this romantic vision of that fairy tale, so to speak. So I never had it in my mind that it was necessarily going to be easy. So maybe I just manifested everything that had happened, come to think of it, right? But I didn't have that expectation necessarily that it was always going to be easy. So maybe that helped me out. So one of the things I know for myself that really helped me out and really something that I work with women a lot is really getting clear on what you do desire. What is your vision? Do you have like a movie? And I know it's a movie, right? You're going to say, Mireille, it's all fake. It's a movie. It's Hollywood. But is there any like a character or a love story that really brings those feelings of love and desire and passion inside of you, right? Because the more you can feel these emotions and focus on those, that's more of what you're going to attract in your life. So the more you stay stuck in, and I know sometimes it's easier to think the things that you don't want, but you want to eventually shift that around, right? Because a lot of times, like it's been said, that the brain doesn't hear like the negative or negation, or I don't know how to say that properly, right? But if you're always thinking about, I don't want someone who cheats, your brain's just going to think of cheat, right? You don't want to use those negative terms so much. But like I said, there can be value in knowing what you don't want from going through various experiences and dating different people. There's value in knowing what you don't want, but then we want to flip it around and create that vision of what it is that you truly desire. Because the more that you kind of know what you want, and you might say, well, Mika, I know what I want, but I'm always finding people who aren't like that, or I'm in a relationship and it's not going in that direction anymore. So there's more to it than that. So we'll get to that. But for number one, really start getting clear on what it is that you desire, getting really not only clear, like in your mind, but also in your body. How do you want to feel? How does it feel? Those emotions, right? What gives you goosebumps? What did you dream about when you were a little girl? This is such important work. And I'm often finding myself bringing my ladies back to that, right? What did you dream of as a little girl? What's a movie that really sparked those feelings of love and happiness inside of you? That's really going to help you on your path to finding your happily ever after. The second thing I want to bring up that's going to make it either difficult or easier in your relationship is how stuck you are in your patterns or in your beliefs. And this is going to be a tough one, right? Because depending on the amount of trauma that you've experienced and your life experience and maybe how you grew up, maybe your family dynamic, whoever in your life modeled romance, it's all going to have an impact on what you believe and what are the different actions that you take. And the more that you repeat these patterns, the more you're going to keep getting the same results that you're getting. And that's something that I noticed was happening, with me in my own relationship, right? After a while, we were really getting into, I found myself doing the same patterns over and over again. And one of the things I talk about too is how I reached in my own relationship hitting rock bottom. And I talk about how hitting rock bottom in a way was like the best thing that could have happened to me and my husband, then boyfriend, right? Because when I hit rock bottom at that point, like I didn't care anymore about my beliefs. I didn't care about my patterns. At that point, I was like, okay, like I need to do something about this, because we were just like on a downward trend in our relationship. Things started off really strong. And then for whatever reason, well, now I know all the reasons, right? In hindsight, once you know all this information and the skills and the patterns and understanding masculine, feminine energy and what men desire and what you desire too, right? Then you can look back and kind of understand what was going on. But because I hit rock bottom, it became a lot easier. So for those of you who are in a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't see myself get out of this. In a way, there is positive in that too, because at that point, I know for myself, that really helped me let go of a lot of the thoughts, the beliefs, the expectations that I had, right? At that point, I'm like, I have nothing to lose. I'm just going to change the way I communicate. I'm just going to change the way I feel. I'm going to change the way, not change the way I feel, like in terms of, not loving my man anymore, but change the way I feel in terms of like making sure that I feel happy and good no matter what's going on in my relationship. I was going to start taking responsibility for my emotions. And then as I started doing that, I started noticing as I changed my patterns, I really started getting different results in my love life. So, hey, if things are going down, you don't have to wait. And I always say that too, right? You don't have to wait to hit rock bottom in your relationship to change things around. But the more you can loosen your grip on the patterns, on the beliefs, and that's why a big part of the work I do with the women is really, coaching through taking those new actions, letting go of those beliefs, expectations, and doing that work, because the more you can loosen your grip and stop identifying too with all like those different, you see all these memes, right, on social media. There's so many great things about social media, but at the same time, I can't even count the number of times women come to me and they'll say, well, it's my anxious attachment pattern, it's my, or it's, they'll talk about the love languages or all these labels, and there's value in knowing these things. I get it. But the less you can identify with these labels that you see, these trend words, the easier it's going to be for you to switch things around. Because for things to change in your love life, in anything, right, you have to change. You have to start doing something differently. And it's not to put blame on us, right? It's not always our fault. It could very well be his fault in many cases, right? But the only thing we can control, the only person we can control is ourselves. And so the more we start changing the way we communicate, the way we even argue, negotiate, in our relationship, the more we can change the way we feel in our relationship, in our life, the more we're going to experience, we have the potential to experience different results because we're actually doing different things. All right. The third thing too that can make it difficult or easier in your love life is having the relationship skills and really understanding men. I get really obsessed. I know the other day someone called me sexist for talking about, what men want and feminine, masculine energy and whatnot. But honestly, we are different in so many ways. I realize we're 2023 and we have all this awareness, but on certain levels, we still have certain, biological, we're still run by different chemicals physically, right? Men are predominantly, high functioning on testosterone. Us is estrogen, progesterone, right? We have different hormones even. So I understand that we kind of, we're at a level where there's more equality, but at the end of the day, there are different drivers, different things that motivate us. And the more we can play around with those things and discover them, it's actually kind of fun and exciting to understand. And then the more you do that for him, the more it's going to come back to you. And the whole aspect of skills again, right? Even listening skills. That's when I hear communication all the time. But one of the first things I notice with the women who come to me, and one of the first things I encourage women to do is to talk less. As women, we bond over talking and expressing our feelings, and that's great. You want to be with someone that you can do that with, obviously. But the more in the beginning, if things are challenging, the more you can pull back and listen and not talk so much, that's going to have a huge impact on your relationship, and it's going to make things easier, because the more you can do that, the more the man will open up, and the more he opens up, the more you understand, and that you can fix things together and negotiate and make sure both of your needs are met. So I totally experienced that in my relationship too, because at the beginning, right, it's actually going to be rainbows and butterflies. You're going to look at everything through rose-colored glasses. We're all at our best at the beginning of a relationship. And I know a lot of times women feel duped because at the beginning, he's so charming and he does all these things. And then as time moves on, if we don't have the right skills or we're not sure how to navigate certain life situations as a couple in a relationship, it might appear like he changed or he's not who he was in the beginning. And in all fairness to him, we often do the same thing ourselves. And I noticed for myself in my relationship with my husband, then he was my boyfriend. Back then, obviously, he was my boyfriend and things were more difficult for us. I can look back and see where, okay, in the beginning, I was a lot of fun. I was really easygoing and I was lighter and it was easier to talk to me. And as things started happening, I started, things started getting, I started getting more frustrated about things and I didn't know how to express them properly. I started resenting things more, but I was scared to talk about it because I didn't want to ruin the relationship and I was nervous and I wasn't sure how to approach it and I didn't have the right words. So a lot of times I'm working with women on using exact words to start off anyways, right? So that we can kind of get the feel of how we want to talk, because a lot of times what we're saying, the actions we take are going to be out of past hurt experiences that have traumatized us, right? And it's not necessarily the words or the approach that's going to get you that happily ever after. So a lot of it is even, semantics are important. Words are super important. So in the beginning, everything was great in our relationship. And then as time went on, as we, built our relationship as a couple and, the honeymoon phase started fading because we didn't have the skills. And after a while, right, the more you're with someone, the more you should be, and they are going to be judging you. I hate to use the word judging you, but they're going to be evaluating you to see, are you a good, life partner for them? What does life look like in the future? So it's going to get more important to really have those skills so you can always put your best foot forward and always make sure that you get, you can express yourself and get your desires met, and ensure that you're not doing it from a place of hurt or of fear, because a lot of times what happens is when you're coming from that place, you're going to be expressing yourself in a way that's going to be more off-putting to the other person, right? It's going to sound more forceful. Like, people are going to be motivated, just people in general, we're motivated most of the time by things that are positive. So if you get to a point where in your relationship things are hard and you're talking to your man and you're like, okay, well, I need this to happen, or you need to do this, right? It sounds, oh my gosh, hopefully my phone doesn't die there, Instagram. Okay. It's going to be a lot more difficult for the both of you, right? You want to be always from a place from, if you have to talk to your girlfriends, if you have to journal it out, that's something I did a lot, right? When things were a lot more difficult and I wanted to turn things around, like, I started doing a lot more things to me so that I could show up as my best self. And I know a lot of women will say, well, Mireille, what about him? Why am I putting all the effort all the time? I always say for myself, like, I hit rock bottom, like I said, right? So at that point, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was like, just thinking of me, actually. I wanted the relationship to turn around, but I was like, this isn't good for me. Like, did I miss the red flags? Like, I can't keep living like this where, I'm scared it's not going to work out, or I'm scared that he's going to leave me, or I'm scared that we're not going to make it through this next argument. Like, I didn't care if he changed. Like, I was going to do it for me. Like, I want to feel good in my life. Like, I want to make sure, I'm in a good relationship. And then, from doing the steps, making sure, like, I knew I had my vision with him. Like, I knew he was my Mr. Darcy. If you were listening to the beginning of my video, go see why I'm referring to Mr. Darcy. But I saw right away the patterns and the relationship skills. That's really what changed things around for me. And I'll say number four, yes, there are people out there, men, people in general, I'll say it, who are maybe, buttholes, or maybe you're just not meant to be. Maybe it's not the right time, but I highly encourage you, unless, there are really obvious red flags for you. And I hate using the term red flag. I did a whole video on that, red flags and green flags. But, unless there's something really obvious that this is just not the person that you were dreaming of as a little girl, the best way to understand what's going on in the dynamic is to really look at your patterns, your behaviors, and your skills, right? And even your vision, just to understand, what's going on here. And I always say, whether or not you want to stay in this relationship, or explore a new one, it doesn't matter. You're going to want to do these things no matter if you decide to stay, should you go. I'm not biased. I left my first husband. I decided to stay with my dream man. So I have no bias at all. And I don't mean to disappoint women sometimes when I'm not telling them what they should do. I really believe that inside of you, right, what you should do. And I'm here to just give you the skills and the guidance and help you work through your vision and what you desire, and really help you break through those patterns, right, so that you can start getting different results. So I said this last thing I wanted to say, actually, I kind of said in the beginning, but I really want to reiterate it, because you are going to, naturally we see other people, we compare our relationship to others, and we'll look at people and we'll be like, well, it's so easy for them, right? It seems so easy. Well, first of all, if you're looking on social media, you never know what's going on behind the scenes, right? Number one. And that's why my husband wanted to talk about it. He wanted me to talk about it because we had, a rough moment this weekend where we had a difficult conversation. And I have to admit, right, being a relationship coach and married puts a lot of stress on our relationship. Like, that's what we were talking about this weekend, how he was even feeling the pressure, right? He was getting annoyed during the week and he didn't know how to express it to me. And I wasn't catching on, right? Like, I don't expect a man to read my mind, and I don't expect, because I don't want him to expect me to read his mind. And I wasn't reading his mind at all, even though if we've been together for a long time now. And anyway, so he was like, you should talk about that, because even though we've been together a long time, we have the skills. I'm a relationship coach. There's a lot of pressure on us. There was fear for him in terms of expressing certain things that were going on. Now, obviously, luckily, I have the skills and the knowledge to help open him up. But even sometimes I fall back in the patterns and I get nervous, right? What's going on, So I just want to share that with you because, I still deal with that. It's still hard sometimes, even though I'm in my happily ever after. So feel free to remove that pressure off of yourself and off of your relationship, wherever you are in your love life. There are going to be hard moments, and maybe for some people it's easier. Maybe they just went into the relationship with better communication skills to begin with. Maybe they went in with less trauma. Maybe they had like picture perfect parents who were like, maybe they were both relationship coaches together and they knew everything to do perfectly. But that's not always going to be the case for all of us. And it doesn't mean that we can't have our happily ever after. We just might have the opportunity to learn new things, right? I'm spinning it in a positive because I'm so grateful for what I went through, because sometimes, right, you'll even see people together and maybe it's not perfect, right, but they decide to stay together. So that could happen. You could do that if you want. You can desire that if you choose, to just find someone who is, willing to just tolerate things the way they are, and you're willing to tolerate things the way they are for you, and you guys stay together for 50 years and whatever. So that could be a good deal too. But if you really want that passionate love affair that you've always dreamed about, and if you don't have that now, there are definitely things that you can look at to see what's going on, and to turn that around and fix it. And maybe it's not fixing it, maybe things aren't bad, but it's taking it to the next level. So looking at my notes here, and that's all I wanted to share today. I hope this was interesting. I hope you got some good takeaways. If there's something that you really enjoyed or something that really hit you, let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments or in the DMs if there's anything you want me to talk about, or if you want to talk about your situation, feel free to reach out and I will see if and how I can help you.